Lesson 4, Unit 2. Performance Monitoring. The performance monitoring framework is an important component of results-based project management, and it's a simple tool that captures all the key information regarding each level of results and represents the overall monitoring plan for the project. During the monitoring phase, the performance monitoring framework is used to systematically collect the monitoring data over the lifetime of the project. When performance measurement is undertaken on a continuous basis during implementation, it empowers managers and stakeholders with real-time information about the achievement of results. The performance framework informs management as to the progress made along the results change, as well as help identify the strengths and weaknesses in order to take corrective actions. Performance monitoring framework is a results-based management tool used to systematically plan the collection of relevant information for monitoring, learning, and reporting. The framework is based on information from the log frame matrix, and it's a useful tool to track the achievement of results. A good performance monitoring framework usually contains 8 columns. These are the expected results, the indicators, the baseline, targets, methods of collection, sources of data, the frequency of collection, and responsibility. In terms of the results change and the log frame matrix, activities are not included in the framework, only results. Activities are included and monitored in the implementation plan. A performance indicator is a unit of measurement that specifies what is to be measured along a scale or dimension, but does not indicate the direction or change. Indicators are like signals that help measure results and reveal progress and performance of the project objectives. Indicators are also a means to measure what actually happened versus what was planned. Indicators are neutral and do not include any duration or target. Indicators should be developed for all levels of the result change. They are needed to monitor progress with respect to outputs, outcomes, and goals. Implementation monitor indicators are the indicators that track the performance of the implementation process. These include scope, schedule, and budget. Scope are all the approved activities. Here the indicators use a measure of quantity, for example, to build 60 water wells. A schedule includes the time that each activity will take to complete. Here the indicator is a measure of time. For example, the construction of a water well takes 15 days. And the budget includes all the costs and expenses the project will incur. Here the indicators is a measure of quantity. For example, the cost of building a water well is $1,500. The project manager will monitor these indicators to make sure the project doesn't take too much time and doesn't cost more than budgeted. Performance indicators deal with the actual results the project is achieving: outputs, outcomes, and impact. Output indicators are a description of what was produced or delivered by the project. Short-term outcome indicators measure changes in ability, knowledge, or skills. Medium-term outcomes measure changes in behavior or practice. Impact indicators measure changes in conditions or state in a given population. Some examples of performance indicators are outputs, the number of water points constructed to national standard; outcomes, the percent of people in the target communities using a minimum of 25 liters of safe water per day; impact, the percent reduction in water and sanitation related disease among target population. Here's a table showing some of the differences between qualitative and quantitative indicators. Note that performance indicators are neutral, meaning that no target is specified. For example, number of communities with a water sanitation committee established versus 10 communities with a water sanitation committee established. The reason for this is that in the performance monitoring framework, a separate column is allotted for targets, whereas indicators are used to measure if there is progress or not. In measure result, it is important to use both quantitative and qualitative indicators. The process to determine result indicator is as follows. Start with a basic indicator that will help measure a change. Next, decide the quantity you want to achieve in that indicator. This is the target. Then, define the quality of the indicator by describing the type of change. Finally, the time frame, the expected date when the project should achieve the target indicator. This process requires stakeholder involvement. Reaching agreement on the indicators and targets increases transparency and ownership. Indicators are not always practical and can require extensive and expensive data gathering. For example, measuring the increase in used water sanitation practices would require an extensive survey which is time consuming. Instead, proxy indicators may be used to determine if water sanitation practices have increased through indirect ways, such as an increase in the purchase of soaps in the local market. Generally, proxy indicators may be for the following situations. The result is not directly observable, the cost of direct measurement is too high, and the result is achievable only beyond the life of the project. The use of the following criteria can help define good indicators. Validity. Does it actually measure the results? Reliability. Is it consistent measure over time? Utility. Will the information be useful for decision making and learning? Clarity. Is it precise and unambiguous? Would different persons using the same measuring process obtain the same results? Affordability. Can the project afford to collect information? And simplicity. Will it be easy to collect and analyze information? Use of these criteria to evaluate the quality of indicators can help avoid costly mistakes. Multiple indicators may be required to measure output, outcomes, and impact effectively. A general rule is to select 2 or 3 indicators per result level, which are both quantitative and qualitative. This is to ensure that the project is measuring the same result from different angles. Most importantly, indicators should be set to collect only what is needed in order to measure the relevant results. Collecting too much information is costly, timely, and most often unnecessary. A baseline is the situation prior to the project intervention against which progress can be assessed or comparisons can be made. A performance baseline is quantitative and qualitative information that is used as a starting reference point to measure project performance. The baseline is the first critical measurement the project will make, and is the information the project and key stakeholders will use to make decisions about the current situation before starting the intervention. The baseline information serves as a point of comparison. There are 2 options for making comparisons. One option is comparing the situation before the intervention with the situation after the intervention. The second option is to compare changes with and without an intervention. The with and without approach compares changes in the intervention area with similar locations or control groups outside the intervention area. Such comparisons captures the incremental changes that occur as a result of the intervention. Baseline data establishes a foundation from which to measure change. Without baseline data, it is very difficult to measure change over time or to monitor and evaluate. With baseline data, progress can be measured against the situation that prevailed before an intervention. Targets are values allocated to the indicator variables to be accomplished in a given time period. It represents what the project hopes to achieve. The target is what the project is committing to achieve in a given amount of time. The target, then, is used to monitor the performance of the project over time and determine the progress in achieving the target. Commitment is the difference between the target and the baseline values. For example, The baseline shows a value of 20 at the start of the project. The target is set at 80 units, but the commitment is 60 units. The project midterm report shows the project achieved a value of 40 units. This is the actual performance. Milestones are like interim targets. They help monitor the performance of the project over long periods. The milestones can determine if the project is achieving the planned rate of progress. For example, the project can decide to monitor its performance by setting quarterly milestones. As the project makes progress, the project manager will be able to use the milestones as points of reference to determine if the project is delivering results as planned. Deviations from the plan will signal the need to review the initial assumptions of the project and make the necessary changes. A complete performance measuring framework is a useful tool to monitor the project. The information is structured in a matrix that can help track the progress of each indicator during the life of the project. With this data, the project manager can look at how the indicators are moving and look for trends that can help make decisions about the use of resources and setting priorities in the intervention.